Billy Napier wanted out of Florida. Also, Oklahoma defeating Michigan in a very highly anticipated game. Plus, we had all kinds of other major upsets this weekend. We'll also be breaking down all the big games and all the big news that are all involved in college football. We got a very, very packed show this week, so definitely make sure to stay tuned. Starting right now. Welcome back to the Anthony Balester YouTube channel. I am your host, Anthony Balester. We have a great show this weekend. We have Billy Napier choking and Florida choking against South Florida. We're also going to be talking about the upset that Baylor pulled off against SMU. Also, Arizona State falls. We're also going to be breaking down all the big matchups this coming weekend, like Georgia going on the road to Tennessee, Texas A&M at Notre Dame, and can South Florida continue this streak? Where they go on the road to play number 5 ranked Miami, who looks like one of the top teams in the country. But before we get into it, make sure you follow us across all social medias. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Balester555 and Instagram and TikTok at Anthony Balester. Also, if you're watching this video, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. The more subscribers we have, the more content we can bring to you, and the better the content can be. So definitely make sure you subscribe so we can continue to bring you these great videos. Also, make sure to like and share this video. If you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure that you have other football fans that you know, whether they're family members or friends. So definitely make sure to share the content with them. The more followers we have, the more people we have watching, the more likes we get on this video. It all helps with the algorithm. So definitely make sure to do that. But like I said, we have a lot of things to get into, and we got to talk about the biggest matchups from week 0. So we're going to start off with Oklahoma, who did go out and defeat Michigan 24-13. Now, this was a game that I had correctly predicted. I thought the experience of John Napier, the fact that I thought Oklahoma and Michigan both had great defenses would offset each other, and the fact that John Napier is so experienced, one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I thought he was at least a second-round pick heading into the season. Now he's looking like he may sneak in to the first round. And I thought because of his experience and the weapons that he has at his disposal at Oklahoma would offset and beat Michigan, who has one of, if not the most talented quarterback in college football. But Bryce Underwood, the quarterback for Michigan, just turned 18 a few weeks ago. So that's a lot to ask. Plus, Oklahoma was the home team. So that also favored them as well. Michigan did suffer quite a bit of injuries on the defense in this game that definitely hurt. Now, John Napier in Oklahoma had some turnovers, but they were able to rebound and keep firing. I thought besides the turnovers, I thought John Napier had a very good game. Bryce Underwood couldn't get a lot out of his receivers. I think that he's going to need a lot more help, whether that's through the transfer portal next season or more highly recruits. I just don't think Michigan has the talent around him. I do like Justin Hayes, the running back for Michigan. He's super explosive. He's always getting a long 25-yard plus touchdown. But outside of that, they have an okay offensive line, not a great offensive line, not the offensive line that Jim Harbaugh had at Michigan. They do have a good deep defense, but those guys could only do so much. And when you're on the road against a very experienced quarterback like Napier, with the running backs he has, with the receivers that he has, led by Deion Burks, it's tough to beat that. I think Bryce Underwood did what he could. Obviously, he had some growing pains. He made some mistakes as well. But at the end of the day, you got to get this guy some better receivers if you really want him to flourish. I know he's got kind of a low throwing motion that he'll have to figure out, but the kid's 18 years old. Most people his age, are coming out of high school at 19. So most kids Bryce Underwood's age are in the class of 2026. So they're still playing in high school. I mean, Bryce Underwood is probably younger than some of these top quarterback recruits that are seniors in high school that are coming out next year. So I do think that he'll get better. And Michigan, if they really want him to get better and they really want him to flourish the way that they hope so, and with the money that they gave him for the NIL, they're going to have to give him some help. No quarterback could do it on their own. Yeah, they can make up for a lot of mistakes and carry a lot of the load. Obviously, they're the most important position in sports, but you still got to get these guys playmakers if you really want them to flourish. I think Oklahoma, the fact that they were able to not have such a clean game and beat a team like Michigan, it goes to show you why we said in the preview video of why I'm so high on Oklahoma. This is a team that returned a lot of great defensive players. They got a really great defensive line. They got a really good pass rush led by R. Mason Thomas. They got a good secondary as well. This team doesn't really have many weaknesses. Their offensive line seems to be improved from last year. Like I said, they got multiple good running backs. They got a former linebacker playing tight end who seems to be flourishing as well. You got Burks and others at wide receiver. So as long as Napier and these guys keep playing the way they play, they're going to be a tough out for anybody. I said the only thing that's probably going to hold Oklahoma is not Oklahoma themselves, but the schedule. The schedule is an absolute gauntlet. I mean, with that schedule, yeah, this team may be a 10-2 caliber team, but they might end up 8-4 or 9-3 because that schedule was so daunting. I think if any team in the country had that schedule, they would struggle to hit that 10 or 11 win mark. And we know with the college football playoff, with the expanded version of it, the 12 teams, you really want to go for that 10-2 mark. When you get to 9-3, you're kind of on that bubble, and you probably aren't going to make it in. And or if you do, you got to have a lot of things go your way, and you really don't control your own destiny anymore. For Michigan, obviously, they still got their full season ahead. They haven't even got into conference play. So obviously, this is a team that can still accomplish everything they want to accomplish. But as I said before, I do think Michigan is a year away. They got some experience on defense with Derek Moore and others, but they got some other young guys on defense, and I think that they're a year away. They need a couple more transfer portal hits at the wide receiver. But hey, if they can somehow sneak that win at the end of the year against Ohio State, Michigan's going to be very, very happy. I mean, even if they go 7-5, 8-4, if one of those wins are against Ohio State, they're going to be looking pretty good and be pretty happy about it. But that's my thoughts. I think Oklahoma is one of the better teams. I think they're a top 10 caliber team in the country. And if they could somehow get to the 10 win mark with this schedule, I'm not going to want to see them in the playoffs because with all that experience going up against these top teams, going against these playoff teams in the playoffs when the postseason comes, that's going to be something that this team and roster is going to be already used to. Let's see if this team can stay healthy going through that gauntlet, but I'm very, very happy and impressed with what Oklahoma has done. Now let's go to what was the biggest upset, and that was South Florida. Beating their boys down in the same state and beating the Florida Gators 18-16. This was a game that, gave us everything. We had explosive plays. We had, comebacks when South Florida was down. I think one thing that stood out was I think Billy Napier could have coached a better game, and I think DJ Agway got outplayed by Byram. Byram, the quarterback for South Florida, because of some team issues that he had. I'm not sure if he was late to practice one day or missed the meeting, but they had a team self-imposed suspension for the first beginning part of the game. And you can see as soon as Byram hit the football field, this guy was electric. I'm pretty sure his first play, he came in the game towards the end of the second quarter and ran right down the field to get this team in a scoring position, and they were able to capitalize on that. And then you've seen some more explosive plays. I think he threw a long touchdown as well. So it may have been either a long touchdown throw or a long touchdown run from one of the running backs. But, man, whenever this team needed an explosive play, they got it. And whenever their defense needed a stop against Florida, they got it as well. DJ Wagway has to play better. This is a guy who was one of the top recruits coming out of high school. He, even with, having a, subpar freshman season where he did show promise, was still one of the top candidates for the Heisman heading into the season, while still kind of being an unproven guy. So we know what the talent that this guy has and what is expected of him. And yet he got outplayed by a quarterback that maybe he's playing himself into a position to be an NFL draft pick, but no one's considered Byram as a first-round pick. They're considering him still as a day 3, 5th to 7th round draft pick. And for a guy like DJ Lagway, who's supposed to be a potential maybe first-round NFL draft pick, that's supposed to be a franchise-altering guy, he did not look like that. Now Billy Napier, a guy who ended the season on a hot note with all these young guys playing so well like him, like Jaden Bogg, like Wilson at receiver, this great defensive line and defense that they have. Obviously, you can't really blame the defense too much. They only, gave up 18 points. So I'm not going to blame Caleb Banks or McCray or Tyreek Sapp or these other good defensive players. They did their job. Giving up 18 points to, a really good college football team in South Florida is a really, I think, impressive mark. But when your offense with DJ Lagway and Jaden Bogg and Eugene Wilson and others, when this team could only put up 16 points against South Florida, and Billy Napier is supposed to be an offensive-minded coach, that's definitely where the questions come in. I think if this team, I understand, like I said, with Oklahoma, Florida also is a team that's got a very hard schedule. But when you have a hard schedule, I understand that this is probably the cream of the crop for, South Florida being the best team possibly this year in the group of 5, who is coming off of a very impressive blowout win against Boise State, a team that maybe make the playoffs as a representative of the group of 5. You got to win this game. When you look at the gauntlet that Florida's going to have, we'll be talking about a big matchup they have coming up against LSU on the road. When you have the schedule that Florida has, you can't afford to lose these games. Now, what could be a 9 to 10 win season gets spread into a 7-win season. And I think with the way this team finished last year, I think winning 7 or 8 games, I want to say 7, but 7 or 8 games last year on a hot winning streak, winning their bowl game, if this team now takes a step back or stays the same with all these guys coming back, all the young guys plus the upperclassmen that could have went to the NFL draft, with the defensive players this team has, with the offensive players this team has, there's no way that this team could be sitting at 7-5 at the end of the year. I think that they have to at least get to the 8-4 mark. Obviously, fans and others probably want a 9-3 win at least either make the playoffs or just be on the outside in the bubble. This is a team that may not get that far. They may only get 7 wins, and 8 wins may not make the fan base that happy. I think 8 wins lets Billy Napier and enables him to keep his job for another year. But he will be on the hot seat, and he's going to be on the hot seat for, pretty much the foreseeable future. He was on the hot seat to start last year and then finish on a high note. He's going to have to do the same thing now. But with that schedule, it's going to be really hard for him to finish on a high note. He's got to get this offense going. He's got to get DJ Lagway going. And if he can't, then he might get his contract bought out, and Florida may go get another guy, because with the talent that this team has, it's unacceptable for this team to be, a 7-5 win ball club. The talent, even with the schedule, warrants at least an 8 win. Like I said, I know fans won't accept 8 wins. In my opinion, I think 8 wins saves his job. 7 wins, I think we can see the Florida Gators with a new head coach next season. So, like I said with Kalen DeBoer last week, who did step up and was able to get a blowout win, but again, against the Louisiana Monroe, his job's still on the hot seat for now. Billy Napier now is going to have to respond. He's got a great opportunity to do this. We'll talk about that game coming up later in the show, but Billy Napier's got to get this offense going, or he may be, looking for a job, and he may have to go back and coach one of these group of 5 teams. Let's talk about another upset, one of 3 really big ones we have, and that was Baylor, who came back and stunned SMU in overtime. SMU looked like they'll run away with this. They had explosive plays through the passing game. KJ Jennings started off, I think it was like 9 for 9 or 10 for 10. He looked like he couldn't be stopped, getting long passes to guys like Jordan Hudson and others. Baylor, I said coming in this game, I liked their offense, but I didn't like their defense. Well, their defense didn't play that good, but their offense was still able to play good enough to come back and get the win. I thought, they also had turnovers as well. So the fact that Baylor defense couldn't get any stops, the fact that they had turnovers, but hey, they were able to make the plays when it mattered. Sawyer Robinson, whenever they needed a big play, throwing touchdowns to Josh Cameroon and others. Bryson Washington, who I think had a fumble, responding as well, having a touchdown of his. And then this team going to overtime. One thing you got to look at with SMU was their field goal kicking. I believe that they had an opportunity to win this game. Before overtime, they missed the field goal. And then their kicker missed another field goal in overtime. And when you're in overtime, you're pretty much almost start in automatic field goal range. And if you miss a field goal and you come up with no points, it's almost a guaranteed loss because that team doesn't really have to get much yardage, and all they got to do is kick a field goal. So, and that's what Baylor did. They were able to come out and get that field goal. I think it was in double overtime to send SMU packing with a loss. This was a team that needed to win after losing last week to Auburn, and I just did not trust Baylor's defense, but they didn't even need their defense really in this one. Their defense made just enough plays to keep it close and make up for the turnovers that Baylor had, but Sawyer Robinson was just not going to be denied. Even though Kevin Jennings started off the game hot, I thought Sawyer Robinson was the one that was more clutch later on in this game. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to blame either, offense. I'm going to blame the defense. I guess Baylor's defense was able to make the plays when it mattered, and I guess Baylor just had the better field goal kicker. Now Baylor, after losing last week, is now 1-1, and SMU now is 1-1. I guess thank God this is not a conference game for SMU. So, and with Baylor losing last week to an SEC foe, SEC opponent in Auburn, neither of these teams have a loss in conference. So both these teams, again, have their full season ahead of them. They could accomplish everything they want. But SMU's got to get that field goal kicking fixed. They got to get better plays out of the running game. And they got to get their defense going. They got to get their defense. They got to get their field goal kicker. No, he's got to play. No excuses for you to miss that field goal kick in overtime. But Baylor, what was one of the best games, never gave up, showed great grit. It goes to show you why they have one of the best coaches, and Dave Arianda, who has been a head coach at Baylor for quite some time. And whenever this team's doubted, that's when they play their best. I still don't trust their defense, but it shows you that how great this offense is, that they're going to be able to do guys like Bryson Washington, Josh Cameroon, and mainly Sawyer Robinson, who looks like an NFL quarterback, day 3 guy, is going to be able to keep this team in ball games when, their defense is going to be allowing a lot of explosive plays. Then another upset that happened, we had Mississippi State, who shocks Arizona State and winning this game 24-20. Now, this was a game that I believe I said Arizona State would win, but going on the road to an SEC, we know that the SEC is much stronger than the Big 12, that can spell recipe for upset. I thought Arizona State wouldn't cover the point spread, but I thought that they would win. They started off the game really, really slow. Mississippi State's defense was really shutting down Sam Levin on multiple fourth down plays. They were able to hold Jordan Tyson, their top receiver, in check. And an offense that really wasn't expected to do much was able to make some plays. But then Kenny Dillingham was able to make the adjustments. Sam Levitt started to get hot. The offense started to get some plays. They started to get some contributions out of the running backs. And it seemed like all the momentum had went the Arizona State's way in the second half. They ended up late in the game going out and taking the lead. And what does Mississippi State do on the next drive? They hit a long touchdown to Brandon Thompson. I want to say Brandon Thompson has really emerged for this Mississippi State team. This was an offense that we were wondering, who's going to step up? This was a complete unknown team at the receiver position, and they got their speed guy that has really showed why he's going to be their number one receiver. I just think in that situation, when this team has the score, Arizona State, with all those defensive players they return, with what's supposed to be a really, solid secondary that's got multiple day 3 guys that are supposed to be shut down corners. They got good safeties. They got a good pass rush. They got guys, some of these guys might end up moving up to a day 2, may end up being a second, third round pick. So when you return all your defensive players pretty much, this is a team that you can't allow that touchdown. And there was enough time that maybe Sam Levitt could get something going. So Sam Levitt had the ball, and he's a guy who has been talked about as maybe a franchise quarterback who has some mobility, can make throws on the run, could do a little bit of everything, and he's seen as maybe a late first-round guy. Well, at times he looked like that, and at times he didn't. And, it's tough. When you give up that long pass to Brandon Thompson, it's tough mentally to come back. But when you're a great quarterback, that's what you have to do. And Sam Levitt had an opportunity to maybe go on his late game drive and match Blake Shapen, the quarterback from Mississippi State, and have his own long touchdown. And his went the exact opposite by throwing a interception. So Sam Levitt's got some things to fix. This Arizona State defense going up against Mississippi State that no one expected anything out of this offense this year wasn't able to do what they're supposed to do. I know going on the road, the SEC is tough, but giving up 24 points to the Mississippi State team that no one really, sees them as an offensive juggernaut, and giving up that long touchdown at the end when you know you got to have a stop, that's unacceptable. But again, it was a non-conference loss for them. Kenny Dillingham's one of the best coaches in college football. I think this team will rebound, and I still think that they're the favorite and should still be able to come out the Big 12. Now to round out our Week 2, we're going to talk about all of the big things that happened in Week 2. I thought Iowa State getting that field goal win late over Iowa was a great game. That game pretty much went back and forth. I thought at first Iowa couldn't get really much out of their offense, and then Mark Rokowski started to really turn it up, started to make a push for a comeback. I thought Iowa State's defense played much better in the second half. Rocco Beck again continuing his streak of throwing a passing touchdown. That guy, is one of the most impressive quarterbacks in college. That guy is such a good leader. Whenever they need to play, he's able to put the team on his back. He's super, super accurate. He's super smart. He never seems to be in the wrong position. He never seems to be making wrong plays. And I know no quarterback, is perfect. Yeah, he has his flaws, and yeah, he has his ups and downs. But when this team really needs to make a play, more often than not, over the last couple of years since this guy's become a starter, and now with all the experience he has, he seems to be making the right play. Iowa came back and seemed like they were going to be able to maybe force this game into overtime by tying it. But just like in previous years, Iowa State was able to get in field goal range, and one of the best kickers in college football for Iowa State was able to clutch up again and make a long field goal. Now, obviously, Iowa had a chance to come out and make their own plays, but Dominique Orange and these other great players like McLaughlin and Bacon and others were really able to shut down Iowa on that final drive and really show that winning mentality and that winning grit. This is a very experienced defense. The only thing that they're experienced is at wide receiver, and it seems like each game there's a new guy that's contributing and stepping up for them and doing just enough to go along with the experienced Rocco Beck and with the running backs that they have. I thought maybe they could have gotten a little bit more out of the running backs in this one, but we know Iowa's got a good defense. So obviously, you got to take what you could get against Iowa. But again, Iowa State showed that winning mentality, showed that winning experience, and showed why this can end up being a good team. We just talked about on the last topic about Arizona State in the Big 12. Well, they're going to have some serious competition with Iowa State in the Big 12. I also want to talk about Clemson. Clemson was able to pull out with the win, but man, I know it had a weather delay, but for the first half of that game, they were struggling against Troy. I mean, getting turnovers. Kate Klubnik did not look good. Their defense, which was supposed to be one of the best in college football, with Torrella at corner, Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, these unblockable guys and shutdown corner, they didn't really look like in the first half. And you're talking about going up against a bunch of guys who, may be pros, but not really. These are guys that probably you see as a trial in the preseason, but a lot of these guys on Troy aren't going to be playing on Sundays, where Clemson is supposed to have a lot of these NFL guys, and they really struggled with Troy. This was a team that just lost to LSU the week before, and you thought this was a perfect opportunity for them to rebound, and they really didn't. So this is a team that I did pick to win the national championship, and I said after last week, I don't really have many doubts. I do have doubts now. For you to struggle against a team that all the other teams are going to be in the championship picture and then the title contention, which is absolutely mollywop, and you're going to struggle against Troy. I know they got some turnovers. Kate Klubnik was able to make some plays in the second half to win this game, but there's no excuses. You can't be having turnovers. And for a guy like Clay Klubnik, who's improved every single season, it seems like this year may be the year where he regresses. And that's what we've seen over the first 2 weeks of the season. So Dabo Swinney's going to have to get this team back. We know he usually is able to coach up the defense. And I know they didn't have Antonio Williams, their star receiver. But they have other weapons. You got Brian Wesco. You got T.J. Moore. You have plenty of weapons to be able to dismantle a team like Troy, and that didn't happen. Speaking of a top team who did handle business, that was Oregon. Oregon was able to go out and absolutely destroy Oklahoma State. Now, I know Oklahoma State supposed to be one of the worst teams in the Power Four. They were, I think, Oregon, when we did the game last week, was a 4-touchdown favorite. I think it was like 28.5. So this was supposed to be a blowout. But when you beat another Power Four team, whether it's one of the worst teams in the Power Four or not, I mean, a Power Four team at the end of the day is still a Power Four team. Whether they're the worst team in the Power Four, one of them, a team that doesn't have a lot of talent and, is in a rebuild, for you to go out there and like Oregon and completely destroy Oklahoma State 69-3, I mean, that scores that you see like Alabama against Louisiana Monroe, or, insert any top name team like Georgia or Alabama. And when they play against these schools, these unknown schools, these what I call roast beef state type schools, these schools that you never hear about that just have these random names. These are types of schools that get blown out. But you to blow out a team that's in the Power Four conference with the good coaching, Mike Gundy, it's a combination of two things. It just goes to show you that Oklahoma State might be the worst team in the Power Four, but maybe Oregon is really that good this year. This was a team that lost Evan Stewart to start the season. We don't know when he's going to be back, so we didn't know who was going to step up. We know they had Corian Moore, who was one of the top recruits that we've seen in a long time at receiver, along with a guy like Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. This guy is in almost the same category as these guys, and he stepped up. The running backs for this team has really stepped up, and the new quarterback, Dante Moore, who could have went and started somewhere else, decided to sit back for a year behind Dylan Gabriel, and we see that experience really affecting him and really showing, really positive signs for him. So far, Dante Moore has looked all the part of what we thought he was coming out of high school. He's a guy who maybe a lot of people weren't talking about, but talent-wise, seems like, it might be better suited for him to come back another year and play 2 years in this Oregon system, but a guy who is playing his way into the conversation as one of these first-round talent quarterbacks. This team just could not be stopped. They got probably the best tight end in the draft, and he looked unstoppable. He's so explosive. His run-after-a-catch ability is second to none. So they got a great tight end. They got probably the best offensive line in college football, which has helped keeping Dante Moore clean. But again, 69-3, that scores you see against FCS opponents, not against a Power 4 conference team. So it goes to show you how bad and how struggling it is in Oklahoma State, but how great and how explosive this Oregon team is. Also, Oregon's got this great pass rush, this great defense. The team doesn't look like it's got any weaknesses now. Now they haven't been able to play anybody to maybe exploit any of the weaknesses that they might potentially have. We still got to see what Dante Moore does in a hostile environment against a competitive team that, even if they don't match him talent-wise, is at least on a talent level to at least be able to compete and give them a fighting chance. Lastly, before we move on to our game picks, we had Illinois, who played a really competitive game with Duke. And it was at times where, Jarian Mensah was making, really tight window throws. This receiving core was getting contributions. Their defense, which is why I bragged about getting into this game, Duke's defense was really doing good against Luke Altmaier and Illinois' defense. But what really killed them was the turnovers. I think they had a punt return that was fumbled. Running backs were fumbling. I think Mensah ended up having a turnover, and that kind of took him out of it. What was crazy is even after a lot of those turnovers in the first half, this game was still close. But then I think Illinois made the adjustments, and Illinois pulled away in the second half, showing why this is a potential playoff caliber team, what a lot of people thought about heading this season. This was a team that returned a lot of players. They got some decent guys in the transfer portal. So this is a team with, guys like Gabe Jacobs, who's projected to be a top 50 NFL draft pick. Xavier Scott, who is looking like the next Devin Witherspoon, and looking like he might be pushing his way up into a late first round defensive back. And they got other good players as well. Then we look at the offense. They're getting contributions out of some of their new wide receivers. Luke Altmaier, who was not struggling, but definitely getting shut down a little bit by Duke's really good defense, who also has NFL players, was really able to steer the ship, go through the struggles, fight through it, not give up, and be able to make the adjustments in the second half. So this was a team in Duke who Duke had every opportunity to win this game, but the turnovers really, killed them. And in the second half, it was all Illinois. Now let's get to the game picks. We got some really good matchups this week. I think this will be a better slate of games than what we had last week. And we got to start off with the biggest game where I believe this is where college game day is going to be at. And that's number 6, Georgia, who is a 3.5-point favorite at number 15, Tennessee. This is a team in Tennessee who looked a lot better than what was advertised. This was a team that lost Nico Limaliava and brought in Joey Aguilar, who's kind of been a journeyman in college. So a lot of people, knowing that Josh Heupel is good with quarterbacks, he would obviously make him play good and play better than, what he's played before. But this guy's been lights out. This guy seems like there's no drop-off from what they had from Nico Iamaleava. Nico Iamaleava had his struggles even at some points last year. Now, we're talking about a 19-year-old, redshirt freshman quarterback compared to a 23, 24-year-old, I think it's a 6th or 7th year senior. I forget, I lose count at this point. But a guy who's obviously much more experienced, a guy who's got about 4 to 5 extra seasons on what they had last year. And that experience, now being able to learn Josh Heupel's system very quickly, has really showed him flourish. Obviously, this is a team that's always going to have explosive wide receivers. This is also a team that we know is always going to have a great defense. Once they get Gerald McCoy back, their star corner, who looks like the top corner potentially in the NFL draft coming up, their defense is going to be even much better with Joshua Josephs at the edge rusher position. They got some really, really talented linebackers and Arian Carter and others. So this is a very athletic defense that could beat you in all 3 phases of the defense, whether it's the defensive front, whether it's the edge rushers, the linebackers, or the defensive backs. This team is very good defensively. And going on the road for Georgia, that's tough. Now, Georgia, on their end, they got a great defense as well. They got one of the top inside linebackers in C.J. Allen. They got a very, very talented secondary, and this is stuff we know. We know Georgia doesn't, rebuild. They just retool and reload on defense each and every year. This is also a Georgia team that's got a much more improved offensive line. They had a lot of young guys last year. Now those young guys are now experienced guys, so their offensive line's much better. They're getting much better contributions out of Nate Frazier and some of the other guys at running back. This is a team that looks to be much better at wide receiver with the guys they bring back like Bell and the guys they brought in the transfer portal like Branch. So now they got explosiveness out of the wide receiver. Gunnar Stockton, I still think is an unknown. I still think he's had, slightly struggled so far this season, particularly being consistent as a passer. We know he's got some athletic ability and that he could run. He's a very tough guy. He's not afraid of contact, but we got to see what he could do. And this is the true test. Going on the road in a hostile environment, we know Tennessee is one of the toughest places, if not the toughest place in all of college football. I still think Georgia, being the more talented team, and obviously the point spread creators knew that this game would be much closer, so they didn't make it too high of a point spread, making it 3.5. I think even though he's been lights out, I still think Gunnar Stockton is probably the guy I have more faith in. So I think Gunnar Stockton probably gives them an edge at quarterback. I still think Georgia has a more talented defense, but we're splitting hairs here, apples and oranges. Obviously, Kirby Smart is the cream of the crop coach. He's the best coach in college football. So I do think he'll develop a great game plan. I think Georgia is better at running back. I even think that Georgia, even with the talent, speed guys that Tennessee has, I think with Branch and others, I still think Georgia is the better team at receiver. So when you combine all that, I know it's going to be on the road. I'm going to trust Georgia to come out with the win and cover the point spread. The next biggest game is a rematch from last year, and that's number 16 Texas A&M going on the road to number 8 Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 6.5-point favorite in this matchup. This is a really tough game to predict. Now, we have Notre Dame, who has one of the best secondaries in football with Leonard Moore, the top corner in college football. And thank God, for some of these other guys who are seniors, thank God this guy's only a sophomore because of that, he's not the top NFL corner in this upcoming draft because he's got to stay in college another year. So as college football fans, I guess that's music to our ears because we get to see the great Leonard Moore in college, not only for this year, but also next year. But they also got some great guys around him. Christian Gray would be the best cornerback on most college teams in the country. He's probably going to end up being a second, third round NFL draft pick. This team's got good safeties. They got some young guys emerging at the defensive line. They also got some young pass rushers like Bryce Young, who I really like as well. Not to be confused with the Bryce Young that plays in the NFL, but a pass rusher in Bryce Young. They got some experienced guys to go with them on the other side of the edge. This is a team in Notre Dame, though, that has a young offensive line. And we've seen what Ruben Bain and the Miami defense was able to do against that young Notre Dame offensive line. Now, these guys got talent, but these are, second and third year players who are still, redshirt freshmen or true sophomores. So, and we know out of all the positions in college, we know quarterback's a very tough position to play right away, and we know corner. But in college, offensive line's a really, really hard position to play at a young age. Probably it's almost just as equal as those other positions because it's not even just about the experience. Even if you're an experienced, offensive lineman who played a lot of snaps in high school, it's more about the size and strength that you need multiple years to build up. That's why when you look at NFL drafts, you see a lot of these offensive linemen who come out as fifth and sixth year seniors who are 23, 24 years old because it takes time to be able to put on the muscle and the weight. You got to be a guy who could move, but also be a guy that's smart and experienced, while also being a guy that's pushing 300 pounds of muscle. That takes years and years of going to the gym twice a day, building up that muscle. So offensive line's a really tough position to play in. We know Texas A&M's got a very talented defense. They got some very talented wide receivers. We know they got one of the best running back cores in the league. Now, that defense can give Notre Dame some offensive line some issues. C.J. Carter showed a lot of promise against Miami, even though he was getting pressured a lot. He still at times put that team in a position to win. And for his first start, for a guy who wasn't getting a lot of protection, showed a lot of moxie and a lot of grit and showed why this guy is, the future of Notre Dame and why he won this job and why he's been so highly touted over the last couple years or so. I think Texas A&M, we still got to see what Marcel Reed is as a passer. We know he, is an athletic freak. And if he could put it all together, man, this guy could be one of the most unstoppable forces in college football. But for a guy that I don't trust his passing game yet, going on the road in a hostile environment against Notre Dame's secondary, that's a tough ask. On the flip side, Notre Dame's offensive line's a tough ask as well. So I'm going to split the difference here. I'm going to go Notre Dame to win, but no cover. That 6.5 points is the lot to give up with a team that's got a young quarterback and it's got a young offensive line. But I just don't think Marcel Reed has shown me enough in the passing game to be able to make enough plays in that department to be able to beat what is supposed to be one of, if not the best secondaries in college football in Notre Dame. So I'm going to go Notre Dame to win this one, but I got Notre Dame no cover. And then in another ranked versus ranked matchup, and one of the best games, and that's number 18 South Florida, trying to continue their hot streak after beating Boise State by a blowout, beating the Florida Gators in a close game, and now going on the road to number 5 Miami. 17.5 points is a lot, but when you look at the talent that this Miami team has, Carson Beck finally has protection. He's got really fast and good receivers that can catch anything. I mean, you saw the catch that C.J. Daniels makes. They got Tony, who's an emerging freshman. They got some other guys as well. They got a good young running back. This is a Miami team who I said last year struggled on defense because of the youth. Now they're not youthful anymore. These guys are upperclassmen now. They got a really good young corner. They got Ruben Bain, who through the first 2 weeks looks like the best edge rusher in all of college football, and showing why after his freshman year he looked like a guy who could go first or second overall in the draft. He was hampered by injuries last year. Well, he looks better than he even looked as a freshman. He's been completely unblockable no matter what offensive line is in front of him. I do think 17.5 points is a lot, especially with a team with so much momentum in South Florida that you can't ever count out. I do think Byram will make it, a few plays for South Florida to keep this close. But I just think with the offensive line, with the weapons, with Carson Beck, this team basically has an edge and is better than South Florida across the board. This is a team that's not going to choke. This is a team with a very experienced quarterback in Carson Beck who isn't going to choke and have this subpar performance that we saw of DJ Lagway. This is a team that's got a better offensive line than what Florida had. So going on the road against Miami, that's very tough. But 17.5 points is also a lot as well to a team as hot as South Florida. So I'm going to stick with the same team as I had in the last game. I do think Miami wins. I think Miami's offense and defensive talent is too much to overcome for South Florida. I do think that their hot streak ends. I still think that the way they're playing, they'll probably still end up being the Group of 5 representative in the playoffs. But I'm going to go Miami to win, but no cover. Now we go to the team that South Florida beat it, and that was Florida. Florida's trying to rebound after being upset by South Florida, and it doesn't get much harder than this. For a game that you need to rebound and show, positive progression, you got to go on the road to number 3 LSU. LSU is a 9.5-point favorite in this matchup. I think Billy Napier, knowing, how hot his hot seat is getting, DJ Lagway with the mentality that he has, I think he's a very hard worker. I think he's going to be showing up early every single day to rectify what happened last week. But I don't think it's going to be enough. This is an LSU team. When you look at all the transfers they brought in on defense, with Mansour Delane, who was one of the top cornerbacks in college football, transitioning seamlessly with the LSU defense, with Weeks at running back, Harold Perkins, who could move along all over the defense at edge rusher, linebacker, safety. This guy could do it all. And, with the defensive line that this team has, the improvement that their offensive line has showed, now you've got Garrett Nussmeier, who's protected. This was an offensive line that had, some new guys, but again, just like with the defense, they're flourishing. And when Garrett Nussmeier is protected, he has looked like one of the best quarterbacks in college football. We had a bunch of guys all piled up together in the first round of the NFL draft, whether if it was him, Kay Klubnik, or others, and it looks like he's one of the quarterbacks that's kind of separating himself from the rest of the pack. This is a guy who looks like a future NFL quarterback, and we know LSU has a history of having fifth-year seniors really, really break out. We saw what happened with Joe Burrow. We saw it happen with Jaden Daniels, and now we're seeing it happen again with Garrett Nussmeier. Plus, he's got speed and help at wide receiver with Brown, with Nick Anderson, with Aaron Anderson as well, with Thomas. So this is the team. Plus, Trey Des Green, who is only a sophomore, he's right on par with the Oregon tight end as one of the best tight ends in college football. Both those guys are going to be candidates for the John Mackey Award, and I wouldn't be surprised if this, 19 or 20-year-old true sophomore could come away with that award. But again, 9.5 points. I know LSU's the home team. Like we said with Tennessee, you can say the same thing with LSU. One of the toughest environments to play on the road. I think because of how upset and the chip on their shoulder that Florida is going to have, their defense we know is going to be good. They're going to make some plays against Garrett Nussmeier with Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Banks, and others. I do think DJ Lagway will make some adjustments and make some plays as well. I think Jaden Bogg could have a few touchdowns here and there. The speed at wide receiver with UG Wilson. I think Billy Napier is going to do whatever he can to at least show some positive signs at this team. So, again, I'm going to continue with this team. I'm going to go LSU to win because going on the road for Florida against this talented team is a tough ask. So, while I think LSU wins, I'm going to go LSU no cover. Now we go to our next matchup. We got Wisconsin going on the road to number 19 Alabama. Now, Alabama showed, great rebound and response. But It was against Louisiana Monroe. As I said before on the show, I'm not gonna put too much stock into that. A lot of teams could go out there and absolutely destroy Louisiana Monroe. Now the score was pretty crazy. I think it was like 73-0 or 77 to nothing. It was really crazy shutout. I know it's against the FCS team, but when you see scores like that, it's pretty remarkable. I thought Ty Simpson, who got better protection, showed if he could get protected, he can make plays. I thought even without and with the absence of Ryan Williams, this team got some really good plays out of their wide receivers. Their defense, after being absolutely pushed around by Florida State, really responded, showed some more effort, some more toughness. So I know Wisconsin is a team that hasn't been too great. They did lose their starting quarterback. I like their young quarterback they have who transferred from San Diego State, O'Neal. I think he's the future of this program with how well he's played in absence of their starting quarterback. I think he's going to end up being their starter going into next season, and he's going to end up being the future of this Wisconsin program. But going on the road to Tuscaloosa, we know when Alabama lost to Florida State, they weren't in Tuscaloosa. They had to go on the road to Florida State. I think Alabama being in Tuscaloosa, trying to continue to build off of what was a great performance last week. I just don't think Wisconsin, going on the road and with the way that Alabama's secondary and defense has looked improved, I don't think O'Neal's going to be able to make enough plays. I don't think this team has the wide receiver depth or the running back depth to really make Alabama feel scared at all. O'Neal is not as mobile as Thomas Castellanos, and we know that's a Achilles heel for Alabama in the last couple of years has been that mobile quarterback. So even though the point spread's high, I think Alabama wins this game and covers as well and finally has a good statement win against a Power 4 conference team. Now we go into another really good matchup. We got number 12 Clemson, who's a 9.5-point favorite at Georgia Tech. But this is a Clemson team that, how can you trust them? Their defense, played okay, but Clay Klubnik and the offense looked subpar against LSU. The offense and the defense looked subpar last week against Troy. And now going on the road, going on the road is very tough in college football, to a Georgia Tech team who's very experienced. You got Haynes at running back. You got Haynes King at quarterback, who I think over the last few years, if you add them all up together, I think he's got the most touchdowns combined over the last 4 years. This guy is a great dual threat guy. Not really an NFL caliber quarterback, but perfect for the college game. This is a Georgia Tech defense that has got some good parts that can cause some issues. Now, I do think Clemson, with the talent that they have, I think with Peter Woods and T.J. Parker and Terrell, I think that they'll be able to make enough plays to win this game against Haynes King. I think Clay Klubnik has to respond. Yeah, we said that this defense has, a decent corner, some decent D linemen, some decent linebackers. But this is a game, I know it's on the road, but I don't care. This is a game that Kate Klubnik has to respond and has to show improvement. I'm not sure if Antonio Williams is still going to be out, but whether if he's in there or not, Kate Klubnik's got to make plays. He's got to keep the ball clean, no turnovers, and he's got to show improvement and show why a lot of people, including me, thought that this guy could be a Heisman candidate and why this guy could be in the conversation for a first-round NFL quarterback. He's not looking like it right now. His stock is going to continue to plummet if he doesn't make the adjustments that is needed. So I can't trust Clemson to cover. That's a lot of points. You're talking, they want this team to win by double digits on the road against a Georgia Tech team who's very experienced with, I think, a 6-year quarterback who's 24 years old. Yeah, I'm not going to say Clemson's going to win by that many points. I think Clemson could win this game by 4-7, but that's too many points for a Clemson team that I can't trust. And for right now, a team that I had all the trust in the world heading into the season, I just don't trust them right now. So again, with kind of the trend of on this episode and what's been the popular pick, I'm going to go Clemson, no cover. Now we got another our SEC matchup right here, another good game. We got Vanderbilt on the road against number 11 South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, beginning of the game, had a little struggles against an FCS opponent last week. They had a little bit of struggle against what's a really talented defensive line and a very talented dual threat quarterback in Virginia Tech. But on the flip side, Vanderbilt had his struggles last week against Virginia Tech and had to play really, flawless football in the second half by Diego Pavia and his defense to pull off that comeback. I think going on the road is very tough. South Carolina is a very tough place to play, and they got three of the most talented players. I've been saying it every time we talk about South Carolina. Lenora Sellers has been, really accurate this season. You got Nick Harbor, who's 6'5", 230 and is a track guy. Dylan Stewart's one of the most explosive edge rushers. Now they got this guy in Swan or Swam, I think it's Swan, who has now had, I believe, 3 punt return touchdowns in 2 games. He had 2 last game and 1 the week before. So when you add his explosiveness with the transfer running back they have, with those 3 talented guys, I know Diego Pavia is tough. Eli Sauer is one of the best tight ends. They got a good running back. They got, some decent players on defense as well. I really like one of their corners, Fournette. I think it's Fournette. I like some of their other defensive players as well. I like their running back. But going on the road after what we saw with Virginia Tech against this South Carolina team who looks to prove all the doubters wrong last year, why they should have been a playoff team. They have a really, really, smart coach in Beamer who has really improved each and every year. And his game plans and his system has just gotten better and better each and every year. And this is just a team that he's been building over the last few years. And now it's seeming to peak right at the right moment. I'm going to go South Carolina, which South Carolina is only a 5.5-point favorite. That's not a lot of points to cover by. I think that they could win this game by a touchdown. I think Lenora Sellers outplays Diego Pavia. Nick Harbor is better than any receiver that Vanderbilt has. So I'm going to go South Carolina to win and cover against Vanderbilt at home. In another SEC matchup, we got Arkansas on the road against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is the 9.5-point favorite. Ole Miss is dealing with some injuries. They're young, very talented, but can still have his growing pains. Quarterback Austin Simmons is dealing with an ankle injury. We see him came out late getting that ankle retaped. So this is a guy who is pretty much playing on one foot. The ankle doesn't seem to be, nearly 100%. He still has, mistakes with turnovers. This is a team that Ole Miss that, at times has struggled against the run. Going up against the Arkansas team who maybe across the board isn't that talented, but they got an experienced quarterback in Taylor Green who's like 6'7", big, can run. He's one of the highest graded quarterbacks this season, according to Pro Football Focus. And I think Ole Miss, who had a tough time trying to cover last week against Kentucky, I think Arkansas is a team that is just as talented, if not better than Kentucky. And I think that Kentucky maybe been able to pull off the upset if they could have got just any bit more out of their quarterback. Zach Calzada, who's one of the oldest quarterbacks in college football at 24, 25 years old, couldn't complete anything. I know he got better as the game went on, but this was a team in Kentucky who had to rely on their defense and had to rely on their running game. They got multiple good running backs I like, but they couldn't get nothing out of the passing game. But now when you look at this Arkansas team, they got some decent weapons. You got Taylor Green, who's one of the better college quarterbacks. So I just think this is an Ole Miss team where we don't know what the health and what we're going to get out of Austin Simmons if he's going to be turning the ball over again. So I'm going to go. I do like Ole Miss's defense in general. They got some good NFL players at all 3 levels of the defense. I think that will be enough to get the win, especially since they're home. Again, continuing with this team, I'm going to go Ole Miss to win, but no cover. And in the second last matchup, we got Colorado going on the road against Houston. Houston is a 5.5-point favorite. They got a good quarterback in Connor Wigman, who has been playing pretty well this year. He seems to be healthy, playing a lot better than what we saw last year. They got some other good defensive players as well. But Colorado, who's going with their third-string quarterback, who looked much better. This was a team who looked like they should have beat Georgia Tech. Had their quarterback, Salter, could have completed, an easy 5-yard dump off or just easy pass, and he continued to miss it. And Juju Lewis, who I think is the future of this program, the guy is still 17 years old. He's about to turn 18, or he may have just turned 18, but he's just not ready yet. He's a guy who reclassified. I believe he's a perfect candidate who needs a redshirt year, build around him next year. But their third-string quarterback, I think it's Ryan Sabb or Staub, a guy who has experience. I think he was the backup last year for Shedeur Sanders. He came right in for this team after you couldn't get much out of, Salter, who can't complete anything. Yeah, he's mobile. Yeah, he can escape the pocket and escape the pass rush. But if he can't complete an easy 5-yard route, then he's doing you a disservice. You're not going to be able to win like that. If they had any sort of competent quarterback play, this is a team that could be 2-0 and having a very impressive win against Georgia. Juju Lewis is just not ready yet. And you see when the third-string quarterback went in there, it was night and day difference. He's completing 40-yard passes for touchdowns, and I do think that he makes a difference. So I know it's on the road. I know it's a team in Colorado that a lot of people don't trust, but again, I think this is the best defense that Deion Sanders has had at Colorado. I like their pass rush. I like their secondary led by McKinney, who looks like a top 50 NFL draft pick. And I like the improvements that this team's made at the offensive line. They still got speed guys at wide receiver, and I think the third-string quarterback's the guy who's going to be able to get the ball to their playmakers. So I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go Colorado to win this game on the road in an upset. And in the final game, we have a rivalry game, two teams that do not like each other, and that's Pitt. Pitt is a 7.5-point favorite going on the road against West Virginia. West Virginia is a team who you really can't trust offensively. I like their running backs in White. I think they got some decent wide receivers, but not great, not much depth. They got some really good defensive players that I like that has been able to keep this team in ball games. But this is a team that, again, like we saw with Colorado before the quarterback change, this is a team that has one of the worst quarterback situations in college football. They can't get nothing out of their quarterback. Nico Marcello, whatever his name is, he's not any good. I know who he is, but he's not very good. So he's not a name that you really need to know. This is a team that, benched him some point in the game, and the backup was even worse and couldn't do anything. And then they put him back in. They almost made the comeback, but it wasn't enough, and lost to a Group of 5 team in Ohio, which, frankly, Ohio does look like one of the better Group of 5 teams, but that's a team that West Virginia needs to beat. You look at Pitt. This is a team that's got a lot of talent. This team looks like a team that can surprise some people in the ACC. I like Eli Holstein, the quarterback. He has showed tremendous potential as maybe a potential NFL backup quarterback. Desmond Reed is one of the best running backs in college football. They got speed at wide receiver. They got a great defense with Kyle Lewis, a guy who could play linebacker or safety. Rasheem Bayless, another guy who can rush the passer and cause havoc for the quarterback. I think going on the road in a rivalry game, knowing that this team in West Virginia is coming off of a loss to a Group of 5 team, I do think that we'll see improvement, but I just can't trust their quarterback. And I think Pitt has one of their most talented teams that Pitt has had maybe since Kenny Pickett was there, and they had that successful season. 7.5 points is a lot to give up on the road in a rivalry game. So I'm going to continue with the theme of this episode. I'm going to go Pitt to win, but no cover. But that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure to not only are you watching this video, but make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like I said, the more subscribers we have, the more content, and the better the content could be. Also, if you watch this video, make sure you like and share it to anybody else you know. The more people share it to, the more followers that we can build up, and the more you like it, the better it helps with the algorithm. We'll be back next week to break down all the biggest games and all the biggest stuff that happens over this great college football weekend, any other breaking news we have, while also previewing all the big matchups that we will have in the week. We're going to be doing this every week. We're going to be breaking down everything in college football each every week. We're also doing NFL videos every Wednesday. So make sure if you love NFL, you're going to love this YouTube channel. So make sure you check out. We do college football usually every Tuesdays and NFL every Wednesday. So it was a great show this week, and we'll catch you guys next week. Enjoy the college football weekend, and enjoy your week as well.